Redditors, when was the moment you realized, I'm better than this, and left? Month ago. Left a 15-year job and 10-year relationship at the same time. Pretty much every day when I cancel a half-written comment on here and decide not to submit it. I'm an attorney. The Great Recession hit the legal market hard, and took far longer to recover than the rest of the market. Storied decades-long law firms either massively downsized or shuttered their doors altogether. I graduated from law school during this time, and found myself competing with not just every other new graduate, but people who had years-long experience. Entry-level jobs were requiring 7 to 10 years experience, so I ended up doing contract work, which was miserable. I was good at it though. And I found an agency that loved my work. Eventually they asked me to be the project manager for a major case for a firm that was being forced to use a legal contracting agency by their client because it was cheaper. And they were very upset about it. But I did great work. The client was pleasantly shocked. And the agency was delighted. They told me they wanted to bring me on full-time as a project manager. And they would make it happen the next time a client needed that kind of work. In the meantime, I went back to being a regular contractor. Only the agency would still treat me like an employee with authority, asking me to keep an eye on the other contractors, report anything off to them, and asking me to run errands for them. I'd periodically ask about their promise to bring me on as an actual staff member. And they kept on telling me that they were just waiting for the right time. Meanwhile, their law firm clients loved my work, and kept on asking for me. This went on for a while. Then one day I found out they brought in someone far less experienced than me as the staff position that they had promised me. They hadn't even told me. I was stunned. Then one night the client I was working for took a bunch of us out for drinks one night. Several drinks into the night, he revealed to me that he knew I wasn't hired for the job. That the agency knew I was popular with their clients in the job I was working in. And it was more profitable for them. He told me that I was better than that. And I should leave. I ended up talking to a friend who told me about an opening where he was. I got the job. And now I'm an actual practicing attorney in a job with benefits. And where I'm making a difference and doing good work. When I told the agency I was working for that I was leaving, they were a little stunned, but understood. It's just too bad I wasted so much time with them. Had a manager threatened to suspend me for a week because I left an hour late instead of staying 3 hours late. I'd told him several times beforehand that I could only stay 1 hour late that night to help out. But he got pissed at me when it came time for me to leave and told me to do a bunch of shit that would have taken a minimum of an hour to do. After busting my ass there for 4 years, I finally realized that they didn't care about me, so I looked at him and said, "Fuck this dude, I quit." I called the GM and told him I was never coming back. 10 out of 10 best decision of my life. I had super low self-esteem after high school and thought I had no place or chance at college. So, I took a job working as a framing carpenter right after high school. I learned a lot, had some good times, but had to work with one awful person. This job foreman was an abusive alcoholic that got off on making everybody else's day worse. He was so large he couldn't buckle a set of bags and wore suspenders attached the belt and just let them dangle. Well, one job was a super tight lot and we could get the forklift where we needed to. We were at the point of setting the floor joist for the home. Since I was new guy, I was the human forklift. I had to lift every single 12 to 20 feet long 2x12 joist and set them in place while Fat Bossman and one other degenerate heckled me. I did it. Passes the hazing. But it was the moment I said, "Screw this, I'm going to college." Now I have a master's degree and a pretty good life. I probably owe Big Boss Man some gratitude. But screw that guy. My ex and I were in relationship for 1.5 years. We fought daily. None of us knew why we were even together at one point. But none of us ever talked of breaking up. For whatever reason, I once heard him talking to one of our friends. I treat her better than she deserves, and that's why she fights me. Because she knows where she belongs. Safe to say I broke up the next day. I was working in a factory when my boss was being quite a bit abusive, going so far to threaten to actually beat my ass. I realized that I needed a change. Got into computers and landed a much higher pay and lower stress job. I was babysitting for a family member and eventually became a full-time nanny. Despite several scholarships and a promising academic career, I decided to forego college and become a nanny for a family. I got paid like $20 per day. Worked 12 hours. Took care of 4 kids, most still in diapers. What made me see the light finally was my aunt threatening to spank me. An 18-year-old. Because I fed her kids the wrong thing. When I was in midst of postpartum depression. In front of our infant and then 5-year-old. My ex told me that maybe if I sucked his dick more often, I wouldn't be so sad. Happy to report that was over 3 years ago. And my kids and I are thriving with very minimal contact with him. ETA. Happy Father's Day weekend. Upside down face. When I lost my 3rd game of Monopoly against my toddler nephews. I was working at Walmart after graduating with honors from college. Graduated the same year as the Great Recession. Got into a car accident and had to go to the hospital. I was being treated by a kind German doctor. He had to ask some questions to asses as I had a concussion or head injury. He asked what I did for a living. I told him. He told me I was too smart for that. 10 years later I went from working at Walmart and living with an abusive man. Won't get into that. To know where I am, a software automation tester with a nice house in a nice neighborhood with a wonderful husband and cut beagle. Sometimes all it takes is for someone to believe in you. When I was arguing with someone on YouTube and suddenly realized I'm at it for the last 3 hours. Years ago I worked at Walmart. Went on lunch break. Was 2 minutes late getting back because I went to the restroom. Got written up and told to end my shift and go home because I stole time. They said I could come back the next week and talk to management about keeping my job. I told the manger to fuck off. Threw my name tag at him and walked out the door. Fuck that place. When my boss watched a coworker come at me with a knife and then told me I should be nicer to her, as she's going through a really rough time. I just finally was done and left. I found a much better job that I was sad to leave, but I'm now in college full-time and much happier. My now ex-wife had cheated on me and got pregnant. This baby was going to be our second. She told me the truth after her lover threatened that he was going to tell me. She wasn't sure whose baby it was. Mine or her lover's. It was pure hell. Several of the most stressful and exhausting months of my life. My hair literally turned gray. I had decided I was going to do my best to make my marriage work. And I would have if the next part of the story hadn't happened. After the birth of the child, we decided to take a paternity test because her lover wouldn't leave her alone. We ordered the at-home paternity test. And this is where it gets even more fucked up. This is the lie that broke the camel's back. She performed the at-home paternity test when I was at work. But instead of swabbing the new baby's cheek, she swabbed our first child's cheek. The paternity test came back 100% that the baby was mine. I felt a relief like I never knew. Then she was sued by her lover for a paternity test she complied and the baby is actually his. That was the moment I realized, I'm better than this, and kicked her ass out. I was in college far away from home. I was homesick, so I decided to pledge a fraternity. I was about 2 weeks into the process and, while there wasn't any physical abuse, it was very demeaning. I thought about my grandpa, who basically raised me, and realized he would be ashamed I would pay for people to treat me this way just to make friends. Dropped that day. My ex-BF. While we were dating, of course. He had steeled me. Backed me into a corner where my best option was to get the abortion he was pressuring me to get. Anyway, he'd tell me to do it whenever he got mad at me. But when we were okay, he would rub my belly and act like he was excited for my 8-week pregnancy. Ew. Anyway, a couple months after the termination, we were arguing and I reminded him that he is the reason I had to have an abortion and he put me in that situation. He had removed a condom during sex. He got mad at me saying how dare I accuse him of murdering his baby. FFs. I grabbed all my stuff and walked out. Turned back and knocked on the door one last time. Took a deep breath and told him I'm not doing this anymore. Best decision I made for myself.